I found Israel like grapes in the wilderness. I saw your fathers, as the first fruits on the fig tree is in its first season. But they went to Baal Peor, and separated themselves to that shame, because they became an abomination like the thing they loved. Isn't that...
He says you become what you behold.
Yeah. Because the two shall become one flesh, and because they have made love with this abomination, they have become an abomination. As for...
And 11, again, we have this reference. Ephraim's glory shall fly away like a bird.
No birth, no pregnancy, and no conception. What does that mean? Why is it saying that?
Because 12, even if they bring up children, I will bereave them till none is left. Woe to them.
And
when I depart from them.
He says his word is like a seed, right? And isn't that like a womb? And so actually the word seed that he uses in the parable of the sower is like spermata or something.
Oh, really?
So he said in James, they're like silly women, ever learning but never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. So they have this miscarrying womb, like that they because they hear, they're forever hearing, but and like a woman when she was unclean for 7 days, like it's because her own blood washes away the seed. So it's like the woman that with the issue of blood, because the life is in the blood. So because her own life washes away the other life, she never brings forth like a. And he says, our own righteousness is like menstrual rags. And that's a very unclean thing, but it's our own righteousness. So they're having a righteousness that's apart from his. And so they're not ever going to bring forth the fruit of his righteousness. I don't know if that made any...
Well, I mean, they separated themselves to that shame. They became an abomination like the thing they loved. And it makes sense if what they're giving themselves to and loving is an abomination, that there would be no bringing forth, because, like you said, there's
no intimacy. So how can you ever?
Well, I think that God is calling Baal sterile.
Right.
Like, you can do it as much as you want and do it like jackrabbits, and you're never going to get anything because he's got nothing to give.
Not realizing that the wine and the grain and the linen and everything else came from me, not from Baal. But you prepared it for Baal, thinking it's from him. Just as I saw Ephraim like Tyre, planted in a pleasant place, so Ephraim will bring out his children to the murderer.
That's interesting and different than what I have, but...
I'll read yours.
Verse 13, is that what we're doing?
Yes.
Okay. Ephraim's sons, as I have seen, are destined for prey. Ephraim must lead forth his sons to slaughter. And of course, if we're talking about Baal, I mean, it's unfortunate. We know what happens.
Yeah. He was one of the gods that you killed your children on. Give them, O Lord, what will you give? Give them a miscarrying womb and dry breasts. There's that miscarrying womb again, like you were saying there. All their wickedness is in Gilgal, for there I hated them. Because of the evil of their deeds I will drive them from my house. I will love them no more. All their princes are rebellious. Ephraim is stricken, their root is dried up, they shall bear no fruit. Yes, were they to bear children, I would kill the darlings of their womb.
So, I just can't, just knowing that all of his judgments are righteous and true, and that he works all things for the good, I just keep, as we're reading this, blessed is she that is barren.
In those days.
Or, I know I messed up the verse, but there is a bringing them to the end of themselves in this. Like, they're coming to a place of destitution and the breaking of their pride, right?
Yeah. The pride that testifies to their face.
But it's it's also that the Lord can have mercy on them.
Right. My God will cast them away because they did not obey him, and they shall be wanderers among the nations. You know, you bringing that up, we saw earlier in Hosea that beautiful thing of the door of hope and how God is not done with them, and even the first chapter where he says, in the place where it was said to them, you are not my people, there it shall be said to them, you are the sons of the living God. It's been a few chapters since he's given that kind of message of hope and saying, we're not looking at like just a few passages. By this point, we're looking at chapters that he has not yet said again, that he will forgive them and that he will gather them.
Well, certainly nothing as tender as the very first part.
Right. It just seems drastic.
Well, this may have been what was happening between chapter 2 and chapter 3. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, Hosea's story essentially gets told first, but then the Lord expands it from his own point of view.
Should we start chapter 10? Did you want to dwell a little more on that last part of chapter 9? I don't really have anything to add to what's already been said, though.
Just one thing, that they shall be wanderers among the nations, like Jezreel.
They shall be sown,
scattered
yeah.
and sown among the nations, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I was going to add.
And you know, you're putting that, it does remind me of Amos 9, that I will sift the house of Israel through all nations, as grain is sifted through a sieve. They shall be wonders among the nations. And I guess that is a theme that is easy to draw out through all the prophets, of them wandering through the nations or through the wilderness, and even earlier in Hosea 2 where he said, I will allure her into the wilderness.
Okay. Chapter 10.
Okay. Israel empties his vine, he brings forth fruit for himself. According to the multitude of his fruit, he has increased the altars. According to the bounty of his land, they have embellished his sacred pillars. Their heart is divided. Now they are held guilty. He will break down their altars, he will ruin their sacred pillars. For now they say, we have no king, because we did not fear the Lord. And as for a king, what would he do for us?
What? Who heard the echo of Jesus' trial right there?
Me too, yeah.
Yeah, everybody heard
We
that
have no
one?
king but Caesar. Is that what you're hearing?
Yeah, because what would he do for us, a
Yeah.
king of the Jews?
Yeah.
And again, pointing out that the people who said this were
The Pharisees,
the
the Sadducees.
Sadducees, which were, in the words of Rabbi Shmuley, they were more Roman than they were Jewish.
Yeah.
So what would a king of Jews do for us when we are already at the top of the nation in a way, you know?
Yeah.
If they're more Roman, you know, they thought
Yeah.
they were all that.
You know, thinking of the verses regarding the new covenant and how God will give them one heart and give them unity, and it says their heart is divided in verse 2 there. You know, just again showing the condition that...
Working arms today. Can we hit Hosea 10, 3 and 4 together? Because I feel like they're both related to Jesus' trial and crucifixion.
For now they say, we have no king because we did not fear the Lord. As for a king, what would he do for us? They have spoken words, swearing falsely and making a covenant. Thus judgment springs up like hemlock in the furrows of the field.
Okay, I'll get that real quick. Verse 4. They utter mere words. With empty oaths they make covenants. So judgment springs up like poisonous weeds and furrows in the field. And so this verse 4, especially coming right after verse 3 right there, makes me think of how throughout history it's pointed out that those Jews said, let the blood be upon us and upon our children. But I look at that and I'm like, these are empty words. You know, they're empty oaths. Because as Jews, they had no idea what they were saying. They had no idea what they were saying.
They honestly thought they were condemning an unholy false prophet.
Right, and I believe
this is purging the sin out of Israel.
That as far as looking at the Jews as Christ killers, I believe that the Lord saw that as mere words and empty oaths. And so he doesn't hold it against them, but it does throughout history spring up like poisonous weeds throughout their fields, if you will. And it's, to say the very least, it's so unfortunate. But to say something a little more intelligent, it's ridiculous that as Christians who live with the Word of God, the Bible, in our own language, that we can't go through this and read this in Hosea and say, oh, we need to stop saying that. I don't care if it's historically been a part of church history. That needs to stop, like, right here. We do not say, well, they said the blood be upon their own heads, so they're getting what they deserve. No, that's not... Number one, that is not how Christians, the people of Christ, act. And number two, we see in Hosea, it was just empty words. It was a dumb thing to say. You know? Just wanted to put those out together. And to be fair, even saying, we have no king, and what could a king do for us is also very much empty words.
And then he says that we will be judged by every idle word that we say, yeah?
Yeah.
No, I'm not, like, saying that to...
Well, but it says it in verse 4, thus judgment springs up. It's not like these things have caused for the church to now go after them, but that is a judgment. And we should recognize it as such, but recognizing it underneath the eyes of love and compassion that God has, and not under the anti-Semitic bend that they deserve it. You know?
Or that it's our job to enforce it.
Yeah.
Lest we be those people who take pleasure in going after Israel, and they did not have anything good written about them in the Bible. Let's not be those people.
So, as if we're the people who shall persecute and say we are doing God a service.
No, let's not be those either.
Right. Verse 5?
Mm-hmm.
The inhabitants of Samaria fear because of the calf of Bethaven, for its people mourn for it, and its priests shriek for it, because its glory has departed from it. You know, this is interesting because you see the glory of God departing from Judah in Ezekiel chapter, is that 10? The glory departs from the temple, and there's no response whatsoever. But here, I don't know if it's because the calf is being destroyed. Oh, verse 6, how about I keep reading?
There you go.
The idol also shall be carried to Assyria as a present for King Jareb. Ephraim shall receive shame, and Israel shall be ashamed of his own counsel. What a scandal.
I relate that directly and without reserve to Revelation chapter 18.
Come out from her, my people? I mean, what are you getting there?
That they mourn.
Okay.
That they mourn
The merchants are
for
mourning
this
for Babylon.
idolatrous thing.
Yeah.
Right? And that Israel would be ashamed of its idol. Yeah, so it's come out from her, my people, because they're ashamed of the idol, you know? But that they mourn for it. Like, it's nothing, you know?
Right, why are you crying?
It was a man-made thing.
As for Samaria, her king is cut off like a twig on the water. Also the high places of Avon, the sin of Israel, shall be destroyed. The thorn and thistle shall grow on their altars. They shall say to the mountains, cover us, and to the hills, fall on us. O Israel, you have sinned from the days of Gibeah. There they stood. The battle in Gibeah against the children of iniquity did not overtake them. When it is my desire, I will chasten them. Peoples shall be gathered against them when I bind them for their two transgressions. Ephraim is a trained heifer that loves to thresh grain, but I harnessed her fair neck. I will make Ephraim pull a plow. Judah shall plow. Jacob shall break his clods. And I know that that's going to go right into the next verse, but I think we need to spend some time on that.
Mm-hmm.
The sin of Israel shall be destroyed. The high places of Avon, the sin of Israel shall be destroyed. The thorn and thistle shall grow on their altars. And I think to myself, what is part of the curse? But that by the sweat of your brow you shall eat, because thorns and thistles are now going to grow.
Yes. And these people who were offered rest for as long as it was today.
Yeah. And what is it that Jesus says? You shall know them by their fruits. Do you gather figs from thorns or grapes from thistles?
So he's saying you do not look like... Sorry, I'm just going back to another chapter, but you don't look like your father.
Right.
Your fruit doesn't look like me.
And in this, it's not just that they have no fruit, they have bad fruit.
And Micah, doesn't he say every one of them is like a briar? Like they...
So what do you do with this next part in verse 8? They shall say to the mountains, cover us, to the hills, fall on us. Because Jesus quotes that as being the end of the age.
Right.
And Revelation also quotes that as being the end of the age.
Yes.
So how do you go from also the high places of Avon, the sin of Israel shall be destroyed, the thorn and thistle shall grow on their altars. They shall say to the mountains, cover us, and to the hills, fall on us. Are we talking about an end time event here of the destruction of the sin and of these altars, or I guess the overgrowing of the altars?